Welcome everybody, good afternoon. Hope everybody enjoyed the lunch. Is hopefully not ready to fall asleep on that full stomach, but good to see everybody. Thank you for coming today. Really excited to talk to you all about what we do at Priceline and how my team thinks about running lean tests really to prove value and then identify how we bring that value to our customers at scale across our business. So we'll start off with a brief introduction of myself and more importantly my team. So I'm currently the Senior Director of Messaging and Customer Retention for Priceline.com. If anybody's not familiar with Priceline, we are an online travel company. We sell hotels, flights, rental cars, vacation packages, really all things travel. We're also part of the broader Booking Holdings group. So Booking.com, Agoda, Kayak, OpenTable are all sister companies, along with Priceline.com as part of that group. My team specifically is a fantastic group of marketers, engineers, designers, and analysts. And we focus on all things messaging, including email, app push notifications, our app inbox product, and SMS. And we support things both on the marketing side and in post-booking transactional communications. So think about booking confirmations, cancellation, trip updates, flight changes. All of that stuff is also powered by my team. Looking back at my experience, so prior to Priceline, I was a designer. My background is all in design. I worked with an agency, doing a lot of website design, brand collateral work, that type of thing. I joined Priceline in 2012 as a designer and then gradually transitioned over to the marketing side and the business side of things, managing what we manage today. So taking you through the agenda, what we'll talk about today, we'll go through a brief history, and then we'll talk about our data migration and how Priceline thinks about CDP, or a customer data platform. The deep dive will be around our lean approach to testing, identifying value, and launching that at scale. And there's going to be a specific case study around our personalized hotel recommendation logic and how we're able to enhance that and what we're going to do looking ahead. Finally, I'll close out with some of the things that we're excited about partnering with Iterable on to help continue to push the envelope and scale these solutions. I wanted to kick off this session today with a slide that we typically kick off our internal sessions with, which is our company's mission. So at Priceline, we seek to be the best travel deal makers in the world. Travel deals is at the core of everything we do. It's our differentiator in the market. It's what our customers come to us for. And it's truly in our DNA going back all the way to the beginning. So let's go back to 1997. Priceline was founded by a man named Jay Walker. Jay Walker realized that there was an opportunity in the market. He was flying on airplanes, and he noted that every time he flew, half the plane was empty. And it wasn't without reason. These are smart, savvy businesses. The carriers realized that it actually wasn't profitable for them to dip below a certain ticket price to sell that ticket. It would be better to fly the seat empty than it would be to eat the cost and fill the seat. So Jay created a product which ultimately became Priceline's Name Your Own Price bidding product that would allow customers to come to Priceline, tell us what they'd be willing to pay for a ticket, and the airline could either accept or decline that offer. If they accepted, the customer gets a great deal, a great price. The airline fills the seat in a way that actually is profitable, and Priceline, who facilitated the transaction, gets to take some of the profit as well. So it's really a win-win-win situation. Fun fact, trivia question for all of you, that threshold that I mentioned, where the airlines wouldn't sell below a certain fair price, anybody know what that was called? If you do, just shout it out. Any thoughts going once? That was called the price line, and that's how our company's name came to be. So jump ahead 1 year, 1998, we start to launch Name Your Own Price for other products, for hotel, for rental car. And then in 2004, to remain competitive with emerging competition in the market and to offer more flexible options, we started to launch retail or full price rates for customers who might not have been comfortable booking the Name Your Own Price product. 2009 is when we launched our very first mobile application. And in 2012, we launched a brand new product called Express Deals. This is still around today. It brought with it the same savings opportunities that our customers enjoyed from Name Your Own Price, but it removed the bidding component, and it was an instantly bookable rate. So it's much less complicated, more appealing to the market. And this ultimately replaced the Name Your Own Price product entirely at Priceline. So why are we talking about this now? Why is it relevant to this presentation? Well, it's important to look at the company's history because as these things were being launched and developed, we were creating new products, new platforms. They became product verticals within the organization. They became data silos. It ultimately became technical debt. And our systems became really complex, really challenging to work with. At one point, our checkout was actually powered by 15 different back-end applications. That means depending on what you were booking, you could be sent down a completely different path managed by a completely specific team that couldn't control the experience at other checkouts. It was really challenging to navigate and difficult to really manage the process end-to-end throughout the entire funnel. In addition to that, because we started with the bidding model, our data sets were very transactional. They were offer-centric. Offers were the primary key in our database. Customers were not. So that's something we need to think about changing. Messaging at that time was in a similar state. So we had gone from a different third-party platform and brought things in-house. We built homegrown applications. But the problem was we built one to support marketing email. We built another to support transactional email, a third to support marketing push notifications, and finally a fourth one to support transactional push notifications. And as you can probably guess, these things did not communicate to each other. It was literally impossible for my team to manage the end-to-end journey across the different channels. So bringing it back to Priceline's purpose, these things are critical. We claim to be a customer-centric organization. And we have a mission to support this. So quick audience participation. I know everybody's been raising hands a lot today. I'm going to ask you to do it too, but it should be painless. Who here has ever traveled to make a wedding? Just raise your hand. Okay, probably about 20%. Who has ever traveled to spend a weekend with a friend to catch up or share experiences? All right, a little more there, probably about 50%. All right, finally, who had to travel to make it here to San Jose to attend this conference? All right, there we go, probably about 90% there. So at Priceline, we're much less focused on that big, grand, extravagant trip of a lifetime. We really are focused on empowering a lifetime of trips for our customers. And it's ideally to support this purpose. When we talk about moments and helping people experience the moments that matter, those are the things that we're talking about. Getting to the graduation, visiting a grandchild that's just been born, getting to your cousin's wedding. This is Priceline's bread and butter, and this is where we want to be focused for our customers. We can't do this if our technology, our platforms, our databases aren't also customer-centric. So fast forward to 2019. This is when we first started to work with Iterable. My team did a lot of work to look at the migration, get all this stuff into Iterable, into the new platform, and for the first time ever, we finally have the technical capability and the tools to manage a cross-channel strategy. It's really exciting. Our marketers are much more self-sufficient, less dependency on engineers. It's fantastic. One remaining challenge is Iterable is really only as good as the data that you give it access to. Luckily for us, our technology teams were focused on a huge effort, migrating our data from on-prem to cloud. If you don't fully understand what that means, it doesn't really matter. Basically, we had physical brick-and-mortar data centers filled with servers that ran all of our stuff. And over a number of years, we deprecated those data centers. We moved everything into Google Cloud Platform. But really what's important is it made us a lot faster, a lot more flexible, and a lot more scalable. Furthermore, it gave us a good opportunity to reassess our data structure. So we had the opportunity to work with our technology teams and our data teams to think about what the customer records should look like. What data do we want to store? How do we want to make it accessible? And how can we activate it, not only in Iterable, but across the company based on where the customers are engaging with us. So now we'll get into how we think about starting a lean test and what our framework is within my team. This might look familiar if you're familiar with agile concepts, agile methodologies, if you know what an MVP or minimum viable product test is. But these are the 4 general questions we'll ask ourselves and make sure we have answers to before we start any test. Number 1 is, what is our goal? This is really about why is the customer going to care? Why will it matter for them? And why will it matter for our business? And ultimately, how are we going to quantify the impact? Second, what do we need to actually execute the test? What is the data? Do we have access to it now? Do we need support from others? What's the schema design going to look like? Next, how do we need it? So Iterable offers a lot of great options for us to ingest data and activate it across channels. Maybe that's a catalog, maybe it's new customer attributes, maybe it's a custom event. So making those decisions, the easiest approach and the most effective approach to understand is important to understand out of the gate. And then finally, how do we execute? This is really about how do we split the groups? What's the experience going to be for each of the 2 cohorts or 3 cohorts? And ensuring that we're effectively isolating the variable so that we're running the test as planned and we're able to effectively measure it. One of the primary sources for Priceline, and for my team specifically for getting customer data into Iterable, is a daily batch update. So at a very high level, how this works today, we have processes that run in BigQuery to curate data across multiple tables and build a master customer table that lives in BigQuery. This table is going to have a customer record for each of our customers, and it'll include over 65 attributes with things like personalized send time, product preference, product recommendations, and more. Every day, overnight, every 24 hours, this is going to run, and it's going to push those data points to Iterable for every customer. And they will normalize to the platform as customer profile attributes, and then they can be activated across our channels from there. Now let's get into the specific case study. So we wanted to run a test around our hotel recommendations for each customer that exist in our daily deals email. So I'll level set and help you understand what that actually means for us. So we've got automated always-on processes to send emails to a subset of our customers every day, 7 days a week. We have a version for hotel, a version for flights, and a version for rental cars. For the purposes of this case study, we'll focus on hotel. These emails have a section which have recommendations for each of our customers based on where we think they're most likely to stay and purchase a hotel. The idea is that these will be personalized, they will be prioritized in order from top to bottom by relevance. We'll use this data consumed as part of this daily batch update. It'll go to the customer profile, and then when we're ready to send the email, which is automated, it'll pull from the profile, insert these destinations for each customer. And then when the customer opens the email, we have a real-time API call that happens to pull in a live bookable rate, any relevant rate merchandising, and then from there the customer can click and hopefully go on their way to book. So this is what we're looking to test, to optimize, to make this recommendation more relevant and more effective. Why is something like this important to test? Well, first and foremost, I mentioned it's always on. It's going out 7 days a week to a subset of our customers. So the visibility here, the frequency is high. The opportunity is there. Second, if you look at this template, 35% of all clicks that happen on this email are going to these recommendations. More importantly, of those clicks, 40% are going specifically on the very first deal. Now you might be asking, is that a factor of the recommendation logic itself, or are people just engaging with that because it's the first deal? And especially on mobile, these things stack. People don't like to scroll, so that actually makes sense that that gets the most traction. And that's the right question to ask. We asked the same question, and we actually tested around this. What we found is that we took that top recommended deal, and we moved it to different locations within the email. The engagements actually followed. So we have really strong signals to tell us that the logic is working, it's effective, not simply driven by a factor of the placement and the fact that this is in the first slot. So now going back to this framework, with this specific test, number one, what's our goal? So obviously we want to improve the relevance for each of our customers with these recommendations. And we're going to look at engagement and conversion on those deals. What do we need in this case? Well, we need to know which cohorts, if they're in the control experience or the test experience for each of our customers. And we also need to know the actual recommendations themselves. So the process that we have running, the models, will give us one version of recommendations for control and a different version for test. In terms of how we need it, we're going to leverage that same batch update process. This will give us both the variant assignment and the recommendation set for each cohort. And I'll show you what that looks like on the next slide. And then finally, how we test. We're going to structure this as a basic 2-week split test and measure engagement and conversion. So this is how it normalizes. This is a snapshot of my profile in Iterable for this specific test. So starting on the far left, you'll see these funny looking attributes, V1 through V9. I'll give you a little bit of background and context in terms of what these are. So our team is pretty maniacal about what we decide to put on our customer profiles. We want to make sure that we're not putting attributes on profiles for every customer that are one-off use cases that are not going to provide persistent value for us. We don't want to create tech debt and really just garbage that exists in perpetuity on these profiles. So early on in our implementation, we decided to put these variable attributes on every single profile in the system. Each of them has their own assigned data type, and we use them exclusively for lean testing to prove value. And if something works well, we'll figure out how we scale it from there. So in this case, we leverage the V8 value for the cohort definition. So you can see that I'm T1. That means I'm in the test group. I'm going to get the new recommendation logic set. In the center, you see these nested objects for the recommendations themselves. These are also coming from that daily batch update, and this is how it normalizes on the profile. The email that you see on the right then ingests those recommendations, and same process follows to show me the rates at the time I open the email. So when we tested, what we were able to drive was a 6% lift in click-through rate, specifically on these deals. And from those clicks, a 5% lift in total conversion, customer clicking on the deal and then ultimately going to book something on our site. Now, in a lot of these presentations, you're probably used to seeing double-digit or even triple-digit lift with some tests like this. So why are we excited? Why do we feel like 6%, 5% is a good result? Well, two primary reasons. One, again, high frequency, high visibility. It gets a lot of volume over time. So even a small change adds a lot of value for the business over time in terms of retention and total net value per customer. But two, this is not the first time we've done this. So we've been optimizing these recommendation models over time consistently. And this is just an incremental lift on the things that we've already done historically. Collectively, it's definitely well into the double-digit lift versus what we were doing many years ago. So now we've run the test, we got the results, we see very clearly that the version that we've tested, the new model, is beating control. So where do we go from here? In terms of the next steps, we're gonna look at the different additional pieces of logic. There's 6 components that go into the model, and this was just one piece of that. So we're gonna follow the same exact process, test other components of the logic, and then we'll look at each of the things that outperform versus control for the same category. And then we'll collect all of those wins, we'll roll them into the model, and that's the version that our customers will get at scale. But that's just what we do in messaging. Where this really gets valuable and it really gets impactful for our customers is what we do from there. We'll collaborate with our product teams, our data teams, and we'll make an API that will leverage all the learnings that we've gathered here in terms of what's driving engagement, what proves relevance, what customers are interested in clicking on, engaging with, and converting on. And then ultimately, this can power recommendations in other areas of our site and other touch points. Some places that might show up on our home screen of our app and on our website with our type ahead features. If we have an API that's got these recommendations per customer, we can hit the API as a customer starts to type in where they're looking to go. And these recommendations that default in the type ahead list can get smarter, more relevant based on what we've learned. We can also power other on-site recommendation components or off-site retargeting campaigns with the same API. I think the most exciting opportunity, we can give the API to Penny, which is our new AI chatbot. Penny exists at different touch points on our site, including our homepage. And as a customer comes in and starts to explore what they might look to book, where they might like to travel, we can leverage this API at scale to make better recommendations to get them down the path and on their way. So now, a few things that we're excited about looking ahead. We have this process. It's worked fairly well for us in terms of the daily batch update, testing, proving value, and scaling. But the daily batch process is not ideal. It's got a lot of challenges, the biggest of which is a lot of technical overhead. It requires additional support from our engineering group, a lot of support from our analytics teams. And what it boils down to is it's just not scalable and it's not flexible enough to support what we want to do in the long term. We'd much rather be in a state that looks something like this. Now, admittedly, this is a crude, oversimplified view of what we want to achieve. But effectively, giving iterable direct access to our data warehouse, which in our case is Google Cloud, and giving our marketers the capability to create processes that can ingest data, activate it in the platform, and then give feedback back to BigQuery to keep the customer profile whole and current. Similarly, we want to create bidirectional connections to other areas of our brand, including our apps, our website, and offsite communication touchpoints, and also Penny. We all saw today the announcement, and we've been in discussion through the beta period with Iterable around a new feature that's just launched officially today, if you were at the product session, called Smart Ingest, which was developed in partnership with HighTouch. And we think that this solves one of those key challenges, at least for the messaging use case, where marketers will now have tools to create basic sync processes that don't require engineering, don't require analytics, to pull data directly from our data warehouse and activate it across our journeys and campaigns. So this is something we're really excited to get our hands on, test with, and prove out in partnership with Iterable. Ultimately, what this does is it puts a lot more power into the hands of the marketers on my team. Gives them a lot more flexibility. We can move a lot faster in this test and learn process, and we can be a lot more autonomous. At the end of the day, from there, we'll be in a much better position to focus on the long-term strategy in partnership with Iterable. One of the things that I really value about our partnership with Iterable is the fact that their mission, which is to connect people with products that bring them joy, aligns really well with our purpose. This is really the goal here. So we're excited to continue to collaborate with Iterable and realistically challenge Iterable to come up with new, innovative solutions to make this process easier, faster, and better so that we can solve the goal that we're all trying to solve, which is right message, right time, right channel. And if we can do that, if we can figure that out at scale, we'll continue to be in good position to help our customers experience all of these moments that matter most. So that's my time today. I appreciate you all joining the session. We've got a little bit of time, about 6 minutes remaining, so happy to open it up to the group if there's any questions in the room that I would be able to answer.
Just raise your hand, we'll bring the mic over to you. All right, so I'm going to ask you a question, Justin. You talked about the variables that you have in your user profile fields. And I know there's a couple of other customers that I've worked with that do similar things, but I'm curious how you're able to kind of map out and think about those things and how you manage them. If you can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so it's almost always use case driven. So that same framework process that we went through, we need to understand what data we need and how we need it. So that's why we've been trying to manage these, keep it at a low level. So that's why we have 10 variables in total with different data types. So in some cases, we might need a date timestamp in order to do what we want to do in the journeys. Sometimes it might be a string or an integer, et cetera. So it's really use case driven. And again, it's a quick process. The idea is that we can plug it in, prove the value, and then actually put it onto the profile as a recognizable, understandable value from there. Does that answer your question?
Yep. Got one question here.
Hello. Oh my gosh, I've never heard my voice this loud before. Oh my God. I'm curious, in the work that I do, we also do daily recommendations, but I've found it difficult to incorporate the lean model because the recommendations themselves take so much to build upon. Like there's just so many data nodes built into it that it isn't the most scalable thing, or we're not able to, sorry, I can't even communicate now. And I can't communicate to my team why I need it, I suppose. So I'm curious if you have any perspective on how to trim back on some of the modeling that needs to be done to be put into the system so that we can get to the outcomes sooner without needing to rely so much on like the back end churning that information.
Yes, yeah, we have a similar challenge. We don't have big teams at Priceline to support machine learning and build new models. We've made very close friends in our product data org, and that's honestly the way that we've been able to get this done. So we'll coordinate with that group. We'll create lean quarterly commitments, kind of a handshake agreement that we're going to test this concept. Here's how we're going to do it. It's lean. It's feasible with just our two teams in combination. It's just actually one individual that helps us on the data front to support this stuff. And the whole goal there is to prove the value. So when we did this recommendation testing, and there's more iterations to come, honestly, the end result was one day the CEO of our company stopping by my desk saying, we saw the results, it was presented to me, we understand the impact, what do you need? And the answer is, of course, API. So that's something that we're working right now to coordinate across the product teams to prioritize for second half of this year. So that's been our approach. We have to be a little bit scrappy, we have to beg, borrow, and steal. and make good friends in our product and data teams.
Got another one right here.
I've done something similar, and I not to, I guess, promote a product that is here, but there is a product from High Touch that does the API personalization really well. On that note, I was curious to know, in the same vein of the API, what do you all do for the potential to build in potential fail-safes in the event that there are no values that either match the format or the data type that you're expecting, or nothing, it's a null?
In terms of the response to actually build the deal in the email for that API call?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, so we have basically house default placements. So if we get a null response, we have 2 implementations currently. One version actually only populated the price, the bookable rate, and the rest of the deal was still there. So that was our first implementation. And what we did if the response wasn't there, didn't serve the price, was basically just created an animated GIF to prompt the user to click through and find the rate on the site. So that's one example. The second is creating default fallback content that promotes our deal products like Express Deals. So in the event that a deal does not come in, we promote another deal product that can be presented as a static placement.
One last question, anybody? Okay.
So when you mentioned moving from like a daily batch process to giving iterable direct access to your data lake, what was the biggest hurdle in convincing, say your data team to switch over? So
we're still in discussions. We've been in discussions in the beta, but we're honestly in legal right now, so trying to get permission to do so. But honestly, there was no pushback. I think our leadership really understands, and our data teams really understand that we're all strapped for resources. We don't have infinite engineering support. We don't have analysts who can help support this lean testing. And we've been able to demonstrate the value historically of this framework of lean testing. So it was a relatively easy conversation for us. I think they were very happy to consider a solution that gets them to be much more hands-off and gives us more autonomy in our space.
Thank you, Justin.
All right.
Appreciate
Thanks,
the
everybody.
time and all the good information. So
Thank you very much.